Well, good morning. My name is Gary Seal, and I'm with the TrueCon Consulting Group, and I deliver the art and science of sales with excellence. Now, I just said that 10-word sentence, I think 9, in less than 5 seconds. Author, speaker, TED speaker, and marketing expert Sally Hogshead says that we should be able to leave a distinct first impression in 7 seconds. Now, 7 seconds, that's pretty short, right? Hopefully your clients and your prospects give you a little bit more time than 7 seconds. But in reality, we all know that we are sizing people up by their appearance, their conduct, when they stand up and give their elevator speech and things of that nature. We have an impression that you leave as to whether you're going to engage with that person in the future, like it or not. That's the way it works. Now, we have a fairly seasoned group of people here this morning, and one of the things that seasoned people are able to do is make difficult things look very easy. And so from that standpoint, it's almost not fair for you to make it look so easy for the new people. They don't understand. It almost reminds me of a story I heard about 3 guys that were going in a bar, and they were old friends, and they started arguing about whose dog was the smartest. Now, they just kept going round and round, and one of them finally said, "This is a circular argument. Nobody's going to get anywhere. I propose that we have actually a test. So let's get some dog biscuits and put them out on the floor and see whose dog can make the most creative design out of those dog biscuits." So, okay, that's what we'll do. Winner takes all. So the first guy's dog, he was a nuclear physicist, and his dog went out on the floor and he formed the formula H2O equals, or what is it? What's Einstein's theory of relativity? E equals MC squared. I forgot my part of the joke. Anyway, he forms and said, wow, that's pretty impressive, right? So the next guy's dog gets out there, and he's an architect. His dog forms a perfectly symmetrical 3-sided pyramid. And they go, wow, it's hard to beat that. Look at all the, there's not a total dog biscuit out of line. So the third guy's dog gets out there, and he is a senior healthcare sales manager. His dog eats the other 2 dogs' dog biscuits and takes the rest of the day off. So what happens is that we know, even though you're experienced, you've chosen your field, you've come back into it, that sort of thing, there's a certain amount of repetition that goes within any job. And I read a number of years ago that if you have a job and you like it more than 60% of the time, keep that job, because there's always going to be some issues and concerns with a job, because we know we're in the people business, right? So people are fantastic, they're colorful, they're inviting, they're exciting, they're also messy and inconsistent and ill-spirited and things of that nature. So we just know people are messy, right? Joyce is smiling over there. She sees some people that she's put in the messy category. So there are things that we can do because of the repetition and the boredom and the excitement and the challenges. I would encourage you to do this thing. I would tell you one of the things where you can fight these issues is to set up a personal vision statement for yourself. So, like it or not, we all know we tend to be a little bit more self-focused than we'd like to admit. We're thinking about, what do I have to do after today's meeting? What are my current concerns? And how am I going to finish out the week, get in a week of vacation, make sure the kids have a good time, and everybody gets back to school here in 6 weeks? All these things about me, me, me. Well, if you can orient that vision statement around things that are not only just simply about yourself, but also things that will serve other people incorporated in that, then that makes a big difference. Now, you can't just write it down one time and forget about it. You've got to put it down on a piece of paper and review it several times a day so that it really sticks in your mind. It also helps a great deal if there's some accountability. If you'll fess up to somebody other than your spouse that will hold you accountable on a professional basis and help you understand how are you making progress towards your goals, you're going to find that you get out of bed with a little bit more energy and enthusiasm, and you can think, I do have a vision for how I want to be as a professional 6 months from now, a year from now, that sort of thing. Now, in conjunction with that personal vision, I would encourage you to have a company vision. Even if you're your own entrepreneur or you're fixing to enter into something or you represent somebody, you have influence inside your company. So I would encourage you to have a vision for the company. What do you want your customers to experience when they walk away from the interaction with your company? Is it a cultural mindset? Is it an attitude? Is it a level of service that makes a big difference? And that's the shining star. That's out there. That's where you want to be. But we also know that every day we have a mission, right? So if we go out here on Lakeline and we see one of the county or the police cars go by, typically they're going to have a logo or a slogan painted on the side of the car which in effect says to serve and protect. That's your daily mission statement. That's your grind, so to speak, that when you think, man, I'm just up to here with alligators and I don't know what to do, you got to think about, what do I need to do today that makes sure that I'm carrying out the mission of my company? And it doesn't have to be that vision, but it should be contributing to your personal vision and your company vision. That makes a big, big difference. Now, we all know that when you have these visions and these mission statements and you've written them down and you really believe in what what you're doing, you have to have a level of persistence plugged into that, because it's certainly too easy to get I'm just bailing out of this today. I'm taking off early. Last week was July the 4th. Everybody's on vacation. You start making excuses as to why you're not jumping in there and getting these things taken care of. But persistence is where you need to go. Perhaps the best story I ever heard about persistence was a man called Lester Tenney. Lester was in the Army in the Philippines when the Japanese attacked in 1942, shortly after they attacked Pearl Harbor. And it was the largest individual surrender of troops in United States history. There were 10,000 U.S. Army soldiers and about 80,000 Filipino soldiers were surrounded in the Philippines. They knew if they didn't surrender, the Japanese would annihilate them. This is when MacArthur said, I will return, and went back to Australia. Well, those guys were made to take part in a thing called the Bataan Death March. They had about 80 miles to go. So you can imagine if you left Cedar Park and you were told, you're to walk to Waco today on June the 10th. It's going to be 100 degrees. The humidity is going to be 75%, and we're not going to give you anything to drink or any water. That's what Lester faced. And to top that, if you fell out of line or you complained or you had an issue, the Japanese would bayonet you. They would slice your head off, that sort of thing. So Lester was walking along, he'd say, if I can just make it to that bend in the road right up there, I can make it a few steps further. And then he would turn, he would say, if I can just make it to those palm trees, I can make it. The people that didn't have a hope and a vision and persistence fell out, and they didn't make it. When he got to Bataan, they shipped him off to Japan to work in a coal mine. But what Lester always said to himself, my vision, my goal is to return to the United States, get an education, get a job, have children, have a career. If I can do that, I can make it. He was made to subsist on a handful of rice throughout that 3-year period. He escaped once. They got him back, pinned him up by his thumbs. But always Lester would say to himself, if I can just get back to the United States, reunite with my wife, get an education, get a career, have children, that's my goal. I want to go home. Well, finally, the United States in August of 1945 dropped the atomic bomb not too far from where he was at, like 60 or 80 miles. He was in a camp close to Hiroshima. He was freed. They sent him to Okinawa, and his brother flew over from the United States to see him before he came back to the States. And Lester told him his dream. This is what my vision is. And his brother looked him in the eye and said, I hate to tell you this, but your wife thought you were dead, and she married another man. So Lester had to go back. He did get remarried. He did have children. He got an education. He became a professor at the University of California and actually went back to Japan in some of his later forays throughout the 50s and taught people to hopefully not have anything ever like this repeat itself again. Okay. Now, let's go back to Sally Hogshead, and I have some handouts for you. So I'll get VC to get some of those passed out. Okay, very good. So I'll let you do that.
Okay.
And if you'll probably recruit somebody to get those passed out. And I'll set the stage for what we're going to hand out here. And so most of you will probably be very aware. How many people are up to date or very aware of the DISC personality profile? So DISC means your D is dominant, I is influencer, S is steady, and C is compliance, right? So that's just become extremely well known. There's some people who use colors, some use animals, some use old 2,000-year-old terminology and things of that nature. DISC is how you perceive the world. So Sally, being the astute marketer that she was, came up with her own test, and she says there are 7 attributes that people have of personalities, and this is how people actually see, or how people see you. And so from that standpoint, that's probably one of the most difficult things that you can possibly do, is have an objective evaluation of yourself. I'm in Toastmasters with Steve Gonzalez, and one of the things we do in Toastmasters is we have people give us evaluations on the way we present and talk and things of that nature, because we say, oh, I did a pretty good job today, and then your evaluator says, nah, you kind of missed the mark. So there are a number of things. If you look at those things, and you may almost inherently know, and I'm talking about the color graph on the front page of the manila or the tan handout there. If you know some things about your personality, you start thinking about how people perceive you, and then how you can be of service to those people, because this is how you can engage and not be quite so self-focused or think about, well, this is what I'm going to accomplish today. It's how you serve people. So my top 2 are prestige and trust. Prestige is you help people understand how they will enhance their own reputation and therefore their own institution. And then trust, I like to think of it as ways that I can compliment and encourage people to help them understand they can achieve their goals. And so if you'll think about introspectively about yourself, you may already be saying these things to people and trying to help people out by encouraging them to do certain things. Or you may use your power play and emphasize that if we don't get this done today, then there will be consequences. There are things, there are urgency things, there are rebellion things. The thing that rings the least with me is this aspect of mystique and not being straightforward to somebody. I don't get it. Doesn't resonate with me. For some people, that really works. So one of the things that this test does for you, it tells you what your primary personality characteristics are. It tells you who you are. And so from the world looking at you, you'll understand maybe you come over as a little bit too ambitious. Maybe you're too soft-spoken, that sort of thing. And then how do you apply those things? I think that's the most important thing you can do, and that's what the little chart says right there. So if you'll flip that piece of paper over, there's a link, And one of the things I will tell you is that I do not have an affiliation with Sally Hogshead, and I don't get any commission. I checked into it. She wanted $2,400. I said no. However, take the test. It is free, and get your results back. I think you'll enjoy knowing how the world sees you, that sort of thing. So that really helps. Now, we're all in sales. We all make our living promoting our organization and our services and things of that nature. So we know when we start looking at people and engaging with those people as prospects, we want to find out three things. We want to find out, hey, what's their very overt need, right? Number one. So I used to be in the industrial distribution business, and we would get RFQs, and the paper literally told you what they wanted or needed. You're dealing with people who may not be able to articulate exactly what they need, but they may come and you figure out by asking a series of questions. So if you look at also the top of that list, I have 10 questions for you that you can use when you engage with a client. And so we might say, what's motivating this decision? In other words, why do you feel like you need to engage with an attorney? Look into senior care living for your parents, that sort of thing. What symptoms are there? Those are the overt needs that are number one. So I take something like purchasing a car, which is something everybody has some experience doing. And number one, you come in and say, my old rattle trap's fixing to fall apart going down the road. I need a car, number one. Number two thing is the secondary aspect of what you need. And from that standpoint, it may not be overtly stated. So when you're purchasing a car, because of the range in prices these days, you realize that price has to make a point or play in every time you buy a car. I would prefer to have the $100,000 candy apple red Vet with the T-top on top. I cannot afford that. Maybe I get a Prius or something like that. That's the secondary thing. Now, the thing that you're able to engage with, the thing that's going to help you actually close your sale, is to find out the emotional need of that person coming in to see you. Now, from the standpoint of dealing with an adult parent with older parents that they're trying to take care of, it may be frustration. For the car, it may be an ego. Maybe I do want a subcompact electronic car that I only burn minimal amounts of gas and I use electricity. Or it may be the F-250 diesel gas hog or diesel hog out there. You know, so my ego and my emotions are tapped into these decisions. I'm sure from a standpoint of dealing with seniors, the emotional need is probably more self-evident than it is for almost any other decision. Those three things. So number one, overt. Number two, somewhat subtle but there. And number three, the emotional need. Think about those things. And then simply think about how you can customize these questions to walk down through the list and engage with your customer. You may not use these questions per se, but you may want to modify them. And so one of the things that becomes very important is that, what issues are you facing today? How can I help you out today? How soon can we help you move somebody in or get a will taken care of? How soon can Joyce help you relieve some of the stress that you're having in your business, that sort of thing. So you need to think about that as well. When you articulate your business services, what stresses are you relieving, almost unstated, because you know underlying that's one of the deeper needs, correct? All right. One of the things that we can do, and we know that's taking place in the marketplace today, is digital marketing and digital impact. I'd make a book recommendation called Duct Tape Selling by John Jancet. He's the duct tape selling franchise guy. It's a great book. If you're out there trying to build a brand for your company and you're trying to engage with clients, you also need to understand some things about LinkedIn, for example, that you can go out there and prospect. You can find people's profiles, the way you post, the way you can go back out and do things to help yourself be recognized. So I've got another little chart here, which is the blue graph chart. And we want to make sure that everybody gets a copy of this because I think this is very important from a sales perspective. And VC's going to get these around to you in just a second. I've asked a number of people over the last couple of weeks that are experts in the world of digital marketing, and I said, what's the number one thing or way that you can have an impact on your client group? And they literally said, despite all the digital marketing things that are available in the marketplace today, and they are important, you need to have a group of people that know you, like you, and trust you. And that's simply one of the things you're doing with digital marketing, is to build that recognition or awareness. But if you look at the chart when you get it, the number one thing is to be in attendance or host or be a part of having an event. We're at an event this morning. VC's hosting the event. The Owl is hosting the event. You guys are here in attendance, interacting, shaking hands, trading cards, letting people know who you are. We see a face, we see your body language, we see your attitude. We think about your service levels. We look at a facility and we form a judgment, right? It's hard to do that when you look at somebody's static picture on LinkedIn and you take 2 seconds to peruse their LinkedIn profile. And we spend a lot of time doing LinkedIn profiles. I know that I have. So events are number one. Don't forego this whole aspect of personal marketing, but don't get too scattered, right? Mr. Gill? You can't be at 10 of these things a week and have everybody know you and follow up. You've got to go back out and literally shake hands, set one-to-ones with people and things of that nature. So we always wonder, am I missing the boat by not being such a huge digital person? Well, in reality, no, you're not, but don't ignore it altogether. Then there are a couple other things. So webinars, case studies, and white papers. Being a host of a webinar is a relatively inexpensive thing to do. You can get a webinar hosting site for between $39 and $60 a month, and you can put up a literal site, so to speak. You can have a meeting without people having to drive to a location and set aside time. That's huge. So from that standpoint, I would encourage you to find your area of subject matter expertise, and that's important because we know that when somebody engages with you as a care provider of whatever product that you have, they've 70% probability they have researched you, your company, and the services you provide before they ever engage with you as a salesperson. So simply for you to have the 30,000-foot overview on the services you provide is no longer sufficient. You actually need to be a subject matter expert, because when they engage with you, they want details that are not on the website. They want questions answered about the practicality of how things work with your service. And that's why it's important for you to dig deep in your area and literally have people acknowledge that you're a subject matter expert. So VC actually told us she was, but she told us how she got there, right? 20 years at the state, and now another 10, 15 or so.
Yeah, well, 8.
Okay, I gave her a little bit more experience than she was willing to fess up for.
I'm old, but I started this
So,
when
okay.
I was old.
So she has 28 years in this business, that sort of thing. Therefore, when we want these questions answered, we're going to go to VC and ask about, you know, the healthcare provisions of the insurance law. I know Steve's been in the business for 30 plus, okay, Army plus, that sort of thing. Don't deny or belie your experience simply because you're not a youngster anymore. There's great value in that because you need to be able to dig down. A lot of people in a networking situation will literally avoid anybody with less than 2 years of experience in a given field. They just don't give them credit for having been in it for very long at all. It's really easy to shoot videos. You do not have to write all this content yourself. There's tons of research available out there. I consistently use Harvard Business Review and do a copy paste or do a headline and a first paragraph to orient somebody towards a piece of information. I have a client in Houston, and we're in the printed circuit board business, and there's a lot of information out there about predictable reliability. So I went to YouTube this week and I found a professor's comment on multiple regression analysis, and I posted that link and made a comment on what multiple regression was so they understand. You do not necessarily have to be the subject matter expert, but you can get other people who are, and then it rubs off on you, right, from that sort of thing. But you better own up pretty quick. If you don't know, you better learn the material very quickly, that sort of thing. Now, the other things that you don't need to get too terribly upset about, if you're not posting into Facebook 6 times a week and sharing or LinkedIn and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, don't let that bother you too much. It's good. Maybe your friends will engage with you, or maybe you have a circle, and that's great to have a Facebook group, perhaps have your own LinkedIn group so you can share and have them trade off their level of subject matter expertise with yourself. It all combines into this visibility aspect, because when somebody comes to you and said, I need an attorney, I need an insurance agent, I need a concierge, that you want your name to pop up in their mind, right? That sort of thing. That's where it's at. It's all visibility marketing, engagement marketing. So that's what digital is all about, and it does help. So, probably need to set aside a couple hours a week to engage in this stuff and make yourself visible. Is probably the easiest, lowest cost marketing time you can invest for yourself, that sort of thing. All right, so I walked through that pretty rapidly. If you've got any comments or questions, I'd be glad to field them. You guys may be already an expertise in digital marketing, and somebody could contribute in an area that I didn't. Comments or questions?